In a setting of conflict and conquest, the figure of Zainab bint al-Harith, a Jewish woman from Khaybar, emerges, challenging Muhammad's prophetic authority through a bold act, a poisoned banquet. This historical event raises profound questions about the authenticity of Muhammad's mission and the consequences of his actions. Was he tested in his own faith? Was the poisoning a divine test, a challenge to his leadership, or an act of resistance by a woman who lost everything in the conquest of Khaybar? Through historical sources and detailed accounts, we explore a context of suffering and resistance, where the line between faith and doubt becomes thin, inviting us to reflect on the complexities of human and divine nature. After the conquest of Khaybar, an event marked by conflict and subjugation, Zainab, seeking revenge for the loss of her loved ones, decides to test Muhammad's claim of prophecy. If he were a true prophet, he would be protected by God. Otherwise, his death would liberate her people. She prepares a poisoned lamb, seasoned with lethal herbs and cunning spices, offering it to Muhammad and his companions at a banquet of apparent celebration. During the banquet, Muhammad notices a strange taste and stops eating, warning his companions of the danger. However, one of his followers, Bisha, succumbs to the poison, dying instantly. Confronted, Zainab declares, "If you are a prophet, nothing will happen to you. If you are just a king, the people will be rid of you." Although Muhammad escaped immediate death, he suffered persistent pain, describing it as "my aorta being cut," a searing sensation that would accompany him until his last days. This phrase takes on special meaning when compared to the Quran, Surah 69, 44-46, which mentions divine punishment for false prophets. Coincidence or divine warning? The repetition of the phrase by Muhammad in his last days fuels debates and various theological and historical interpretations, inviting us to ponder the mysteries of faith and the limits of human understanding. If you are intrigued by this story and want to explore more about the mysteries of faith and history, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share your opinion in the comments. Your interaction helps us bring more content like this. In the next part, we will analyze other events that shed light on the complexity of Muhammad's figure. Muhammad's journey is marked by moments of deep faith and intense questioning, revealing the complexity of his figure. The death of his son Ibrahim, despite his fervent pleas, casts doubt on the effectiveness of his divine intercession, a crucial point for a prophet's credibility. Maria al-Qibtiyya, one of his wives, expresses the perplexity of many by openly questioning, "If you were truly a prophet, your beloved would not have died." This public inquiry, echoing the doubts of others, culminates in a divorce, exposing human frailty in the face of pain and incomprehension. Zainab bint al-Harith, driven by the loss of her family and the search for justice, challenges the very essence of Muhammad's prophecy. Her action, a test of faith, echoes through the ages, inviting reflection on the nature of divinity and the authenticity of its messengers. The Bible, in turn, offers criteria for discerning prophetic truth. Matthew 7 verses 15-20 warns about false prophets, encouraging the evaluation of their actions and fruits. Deuteronomy 18 verses 20-22 establishes that a true prophet is validated by the fulfillment of his words and alignment with divine will. In Muhammad's case, the persistent pain after the poisoning and the repetition of the phrase "my aorta being cut" generate diverse interpretations. The coincidence with Surah 69:44-46 of the Quran, which mentions divine punishment for false prophets, fuels debates about the nature of his mission. Other significant moments, such as the illness of his son Ibrahim and the doubts raised by his wife Maria, add layers of complexity to the narrative, inviting us to question and reflect on the nature of faith and the search for truth. Furthermore, Muhammad's reaction to doubts and challenges reveals his humanity. He does not present himself as infallible, but as a man who faces trials and questions. This vulnerability, paradoxically, strengthens the narrative for some, while for others, it raises doubts about his divine mission. Muhammad's story is marked by contradictions and paradoxes, which challenge simplistic interpretations and invite deeper analysis. The narrative also highlights the importance of the historical and cultural context in the interpretation of events. The 7th century Arab society, with its beliefs and values, influences how events are perceived and interpreted. Muhammad's figure, therefore, cannot be understood in isolation, but in relation to his time and place. The analysis of historical and religious sources reveals that the question of Muhammad's prophetic authenticity is complex and multifaceted. There are no easy or definitive answers, and the interpretation of events remains open to debate and reflection. The death of Ibrahim, Muhammad's son, raises profound questions about divine intervention, contrasting with biblical accounts of prophets like Elijah and Elisha, whose prayers were answered with miracles. The Bible, in Matthew 7 verses 15 to 20, warns about false prophets, encouraging the evaluation of their actions and fruits. Jeremiah 23 verses 16 to 18 warns about prophets who speak from their own hearts, not from the mouth of God. Muhammad's narrative, marked by challenges and vulnerabilities, contrasts, for some, with the biblical image of a prophet whose prayers are answered and whose acts reflect the hand of God. The initial skepticism of the Arabs, who saw him as influenced by a jinn, and Zainab's Test, which sought to verify his divine protection, evidenced the search for truth and the need for discernment. Muhammad's continuous suffering after the poisoning generates debates about its symbolic meaning. For some, it is a test that strengthens his prophetic narrative. For others, a sign that raises doubts. The comparison with biblical prophets highlights the importance of evaluating spiritual leaders in light of their actions, fruits, and alignment with divine will. Zainab's legacy, in turn, transcends the historical context, becoming a symbol of resistance and questioning. Her action, although controversial, invites reflection on the nature of faith and the search for truth. Muhammad's story, with its complexities and contradictions, reminds us of the importance of exercising discernment and critical analysis in the face of any claim of divine authority. The analysis of historical and religious sources reveals that the question of Muhammad's prophetic authenticity is complex and multifaceted. There are no easy or definitive answers, and the interpretation of events remains open to debate and reflection. Zainab's story, in particular, raises questions about the role of women in religious history and the nature of power and resistance. Furthermore, the comparison with biblical prophets highlights the importance of considering the historical and cultural context in the interpretation of religious narratives. The differences between the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions influence how events are perceived and interpreted. Comparative analysis, therefore, can enrich our understanding of different religious perspectives and their respective narratives. Thank you for joining us on this journey of historical and theological analysis. If you wish to continue exploring questions of faith and spirituality, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications to receive our upcoming content. May the search for truth and discernment guide your steps.